Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 2 of resilience. We're going to be covering quite a bit today. We'll be finishing up with optimism and starting with thinking traps. And by the way, the reason why we're learning resilience by learning about these little subtopics is because learning about these subtopics and getting better at them will then increase these factors that increase your resilience and therefore, in the long run, increase your resilience. So I've also included a slide from the last lesson that shows you the factors that increase your resilience, and the ones that are highlighted are the ones that we'll be sort of touching upon today, but I won't be explicitly saying like, this goes back to self-regulation. Feel free to keep these in the back of your mind. All right, let's get started. So last time we talked about the benefits of optimism, and today I wanted to talk about how optimism is assessed. So those researchers had to be able to differentiate between those who are more optimistic and pessimistic. So let's talk about that. There's two ways that optimism is assessed. So there's dispositional optimism. So this is how you see your present and your future. If you believe in the good in the world, if you see the positives, if you see a bright future ahead, then you are more optimistic. The more interesting way, in my opinion, that they assess optimism is through explanatory style. So this is how you explain the bad events that have happened in your past. So there's three dimensions that they look at: internal versus external. So internal is when you believe that the cause of a problem is because of you, and most of the time it's stuff that you can't really change. So maybe thinking that you're selfish and that's what caused that event. Versus external, which is believing that outside circumstances are the problem and that's what caused that event. The second dimension is stable versus unstable. So stable is when you believe an event is permanent and that it's unchangeable and that you have no control over it. And so you sort of feel like this guy who's being pulled on the strings. You feel sort of helpless and powerless in the face of whatever this challenge is, and you believe it'll affect you all your life. Unstable means that you believe that this event is temporary and that there are things you can change about it. And so that one, as you can kind of tell, is a little more optimistic. Finally, there's global versus specific, and global doesn't refer to geographic area, but to help you remember it better, I just put this image in to help you remember. It's called global. So this just means, global means that you believe this problem is going to affect all the areas in your life, basically. So you think that the causes of this problem will cause problems in other ways in your life, and so you believe basically that your life is going to be ridden with problems that all just come from a few of these same causes. Well, specific means that you believe that whatever the cause of that problem or that bad event, it's only specific for that situation, and it's not just going to cause a whole other ton of problems within your life as well. So hopefully you guys can tell that those who explain things more in an external, unstable, and specific way are more optimistic, and then these other ones make you more pessimistic. I also wanted to talk about what optimists do differently. So when we see how optimism is assessed, you can tell that it sort of all goes back to your thoughts. So how you explain things and how you see the present and future. But not only do optimists see things more positively, they also have sort of an I can mindset. So their perceptions are sort of different than what pessimists have. So when they have a problem, they are able to identify the causes, they are able to identify what they can change and what they cannot change, and then they focus on what they can change. And so their behaviors are more proactive, and they are more willing to lean into challenges because they can see what they can change and they will do something about it. So those behaviors mean that they are more likely to seek help, they are more likely to seek information. And so they tend to be able to get over problems better than pessimists. This doesn't just apply for negative situations, though. If you go to just in general in life, they are more proactive. So they're more likely to eat healthy and to exercise routinely. And that's why when we were talking about the benefits of optimism, they are more likely to be healthy. They live longer. And so their perceptions of everything, that I can attitude, also means that they emotionally feel better. They are more positive and they have a higher sense of self-efficacy. Okay, and so as we sort of said already, this all goes back to how you think. So how you think will then influence your thoughts, or sorry, how you think is going to influence your emotions and your reactions to things. And this kind of goes back to a cognitive therapy sort of model called ABC. And basically, A stands for activating event. So this is your trigger. It's usually negative. B stands for beliefs. So whatever you believe will then lead to C, the consequences, because whatever you believe is going to cause, or is going to lead to how you are going to act and how you're going to behave, and that's going to cause whatever consequences come out of that situation. Okay, so since thoughts are so important, let's talk about thinking traps, which are overly rigid thinking patterns. And I want to shed some light on the negative ones. These are the 5 really common negative thinking traps that we fall into, and the problem is we don't realize we fall into these. So the first one is mind reading, and this is when you assume that you know what others are thinking, and you assume that they know what you are thinking as well. And so because you already feel like you guys are on the same page, or you think they know what, like, you think you know what they are believing and like what they are thinking, you're going to block communication. The communication isn't going to be great, and so you're going to have negative relationships. The meme thinking trap is thinking that you are the sole cause of the problem, of whatever problem. And so because of that, you're going to feel really guilty. You're going to feel really sad. You'll feel isolated. You might even feel like a burden. So this is when you think that there is something wrong with you and you are causing all these problems in your life and perhaps in other people's lives as well. Then there's them, which is the complete opposite. This is when you believe other things that you can't control most of the time. Other circumstances and other people are the sole cause of a problem. Emphasis on soul. They are the only cause of your problems, and so you become angry and aggressive. Usually problems have a mix of you and other things being the cause of it. So if you are on one of the extreme sides of the spectrum, you're going to feel really negatively. 4 is catastrophizing, and this comes from when you have insufficient information to understand a situation clearly. So then your brain just jumps to the worst rational conclusion that they can think of. And most of the time you don't even realize that's the thing. So for example, even though we're all students, here's an example of if you were at work and you got a text from your boss that was like, come by my office after your shift. You might catastrophize and think, I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired. And then think of evidence outside of that that makes you believe that whatever conclusion you come up with is correct. So you might be like, last week I filed that report incorrectly, and so my boss is probably really mad at me because I've been an employee here for so long, and that means that that my performance has never been super good, and so they probably have so many new applicants. I know applications are open, so maybe they found so many good applicants that they think are better than me, and they'll replace me, and that means I'm going to be jobless. And so just from getting that one text that even though your boss didn't really tell you much about, you just thought of the worst possible situation. And most of the time, that's not true. But because you catastrophize, you're going to be unable to focus, you're going to be agitated, and you're going to be really nervous, and sometimes even powerless too, in the face of whatever you believe the situation is. And finally, 5 is helplessness. And this is when you get a negative event and just go through like a downward spiral, like a rabbit hole of how you believe it's going to affect all the areas of your life. So for example, we are students here, so here's what I came up with, an example I came up with. If you get a really bad grade on something, you might be like, that's going to lower my GPA, which means that I'm not going to be able to go to a good university, which means that the professors there aren't probably going to be able to write good reference letters, which means that I'm not going to be able to get into med school because med school is so competitive. And also, I'm not even that smart, so I'm not going to be able to get a super high GPA at university, which would compensate for like bad reference letters, which means I can't get into med school, which means I can't do the dream job that I've always wanted since I was little, which means I'm going to have to settle for some job that I don't even like, which means I'm not going to be happy. And yeah, you can see that like this is just going down a rabbit hole, and just from getting one negative event, one bad mark, you believe your entire life is ruined. And so you feel powerless, you feel unmotivated, you don't have the energy to do things, and you become passive too. All right, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed learning about the content. And I'm not going to give homework because we're students and I nobody wants more homework. So I'm not going to give you homework. And next week we'll be finishing up with thinking traps. I hope you enjoyed and see you next week. Bye.